where horror lies.
Rob from Georgia here with you, aka VHS82 apostrophe. I'm your regular Wednesday evening host here at BodyBags. It is random week. We are heading very quickly towards the end of the month. I hope your October is going well. What I got for you is something unplanned. In fact, I just watched it for the very first time yesterday. I picked up the Stendhal Sindrome, Dario Argento film from 1996. We are talking about Argento's world post-opera, as I like to say. You gotta love the period from 70 to 87, and anything after that is sort of probably a major hit and miss. Although I'm gonna be honest, man, I'm as much as I love Dario Argento, most of my love comes from those years, and I rarely have ever dipped into the waters of post-opera. So this was this nice little Blue Underground pickup here, starring Thomas Kretschmann, of course, Asia Argento, and a slew of others, written by Franco Ferrini, who has worked with Argento in the past. Creepers, I'm pretty sure, Phenomena. Ennio Morricone brings the music, an interesting use of an old Spanish ballad, utilizing the same notes, so like you could listen to it forwards or backwards. It's sort of, it's perfect like that, and it does bring a sort of weird ambiance to the film. A lot of extras on this disc, a lot of extras, two of which I've only watched. Ferrini's interview, which the title of it I thought was intriguing, A Prisoner of Art. And if you know anything about this movie, art is at like the forefront, man. Art is what this film is steeped into. The Stendhal Syndrome is sort of a, well, sickness is the right way to term it, but it's a sense of going into an art museum in Florence, Italy, especially, and being so overcome by what you are seeing that you literally faint, grow so weak that some people have been known to spend a little time in hospital. It's a phenomena, which is really weird, but the more you get into it and listen to it, the more, I don't know, it's intriguing. It is absolutely intriguing. And then I watched the extra on disc 2, just the interview with Dario Argento. I just wanted to kind of contrast Ferrini and Argento, because there are some interesting things in here. But real quick, what you have here is a inexperienced policewoman played by Asia Argento, who falls, ultimately will fall victim to the same serial rapist murderer that she has been assigned to try to track down. Why you send an inexperienced police person after a serial rapist, I'm not sure I quite understand that. In fact, there's quite a bit about this movie I'm not sure I understand, but there's a bit I do understand. And it's, so I found myself watching this, right, going, yes, this is, and then I found myself going, what? Somebody needs to explain to me what the fish means. If you've ever seen this movie, there is a scene in the beginning when Asia's character, Anna Manny, falls victim to the Stendhal Syndrome, which plays a very, very large role. And really it is, it's often you talk about the horror, right, that lies from without and also that lies within. And this more, I think, has to do with what lies within in the evolution of those things that lurk deep within that we may be predisposed to, and certain things happen and then it's triggered and they begin to rise to the surface. And therein lies one of the most intriguing elements of this movie. But ultimately, I don't know, there's something is amiss between Ferrini and Argento in terms of the art of compromise between writers, the director, the chief writer. Something is I don't know, something is goofed up in the translation in terms of the work between these two and what ultimately lays on film, which is not a bad film. I think one of the worst mistakes is Argento's reliance on Stavoletti's, which usually brings great practical effects, talks Argento into utilizing some new CGI at the time. In fact, this movie is the first movie in Italy that ever uses CGI, and it's a shame it does, because it just does not work at all. What we really needed was practical effects throughout. In fact, even with the use of painting. So, anyways, so uh, Anna Manny falls victim to the Stendhal syndrome as she is at a museum. She's got a tip. Well, let's just say she believes it's a legitimate tip, um, where the serial rapist slash killer, our antagonist, seems to be, will be. And so, but when she falls victim to this, it sort of throws everything out of whack for her. And in fact, she suffers minor amnesia and doesn't even remember who she is, and which the first 15-20 minutes are quite really on spectacular, and then it just sort of, I don't know, coasts in a weird way. I'm not going to say it's like really slow or anything, but when she falls victim to the Stendhal syndrome, she doesn't realize she is being manipulated and played by our antagonist. And I don't want to say too much about it, because if you've never seen it, in spite of its flaws, in spite of some of its problems, you really, if you're a huge Argento fan and you're like me and you've tried to ignore much of what came after 1987, it's maybe it's time that we stop ignoring it and we start looking at it, and we can start really seeing what he was attempting to do in the latter years of his career. Albeit I mean, there's probably not much of an argument of how horrible it may or may not be, but this is one of those curious ones where, man, Argento initially in his story that he wrote wanted Anna Manny to be a lawyer, and Verini disagreed and believed it should be a police person or a policeman. And that's the first, I think, a mistake Argento made was changing characters like that. But then there's Verini, who says on his interview he wishes he could have implemented, he wishes he could have controlled the end of the film, and how he describes it, had it been done, shot right, could have been an absolutely fantastic way to end this movie that would have harkened back to, I don't know, the don't take this the wrong way because I know it gets criticism, but like the end of Opera, or maybe the end of an earlier film. It really had, there's a lot of Lovecraftian sense in this movie, but it stays way too much under the surface, and it never really fully realizes itself and what it really wants to be. I think, maybe, if I'm getting it. Of course, I've only watched it one time. I've watched a couple extras. But on so many different levels, it is an intriguing film. It also deals with rape, which is a very, very, very hard thing to watch at times. And the impact of that, and how, again, going back to certain things in life can trigger those things that are predisposed within us, and the evolution of a monster in making, which ultimately, again, is another component of this film that never really truly sees itself through. There's a moment in this movie, all I'll just say is our protagonist is with a young French guy out in a park, and there is a moment I thought, holy crap, here comes the pivot turn. We're gonna see something really bloodily spectacular, and it just doesn't happen. And I'm thinking, okay, but I know where we're headed now, so how are we going to get there? And that is an interesting thing about this film is Dario does do a pretty good job of, and maybe he leads us too long. I don't know. Maybe that's part of the problem is once you hit that pivot moment where you start to sense the vibe of, okay, I think I know where we're headed now. It's how we get from that point to the end where it just, I don't know if it's just too drawn out, maybe, but it's curious. It's curious. The CGI is so horrible in this. I wish he never went there. I wish Dario would have had his perfect opening the way he wanted it, and I wish Verini would have had his perfect ending. And with Morricone's music, and if the movie would have more fleshed out this idea of art, the Stendhal syndrome, the syndrome that is a very real thing apparently. This movie could have been more almost, dare I say, Fulci-like. It's intriguing. It's intriguing. I'll say this. I'm just going to cut it kind of short. I'll say this. Even with its flaws, it's opened up the doorway to discovering some of Argento's post 1987 work, and this really is the first one. I have seen Mother of Tears. I was not impressed with that in terms of being the finale of the Three Mothers trilogy. But this movie is it's definitely invited me. Oh, Luigi Cozzi's second unit director. Interesting. Morricone filmed mostly in Florence, in Rome, there around. It's got so much stinking potential. And there are great shots. I mean, great scenes. And then, unfortunately, I think the CGI just pulls you out of a lot of it. And it's that. I think it's that balance between Fellini and Argento that's never quite reached in this film. Might be its biggest failing, if there is one, if you can call it that, without being too harsh on it. I don't know. It's intriguing. It is intriguing. I'm just gonna end it there. If you've never seen it, it's an intriguing film, but it does deal with a very serious issue of rape. And if that is too unsettling to you, then definitely it's probably not worth. I don't know. Leave that to you. Anyways, yeah, Dario Argento, a surprise viewing just yesterday, and intriguing. And the Blue Underground, full of extras, absolutely full of extras. Plus, I want to say Troy Howarth does the commentary track. Yeah, Troy Howarth. I'm gonna have to listen to that sometime. I'll be really fascinated to hear him work through this film as in terms of a commentary. So yeah. So anyways, let me just leave it there. And next week, creepy crawly week, ought to be pretty fun. As always, we leave these things off with Go Bills.
This is not a dream. Not a dream.